Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're embarking on a journey that, well, it completely reshapes how we think about geography. We're diving into the really evocative writings of Franco Artezzeros and the Virtual Creative Factory. And I gotta say, their perspective on the American West is just profound. We aren't just looking at Los Animas County, Colorado, as some coordinates on a map. No, we're viewing it as this deeply layered, living archive where geology, cultures, and spirituality all crash into one another.
Okay, let's dive into this with a question that might challenge your usual way of thinking. Can a physical place actually remember? I mean, in the framework we're exploring today, the answer is an absolute, resounding yes. The Earth itself isn't just a passive stage where human events just sort of happen. It actually holds the memories, the ancient rituals, and the conflicts of the past. The landscape is an active participant in the story.
So, here is our roadmap for today's journey. First, a metaphysical threshold. Second, the river of souls. Third, the mythic technician. Fourth, Trinidad, a cultural fusion. And finally, fifth, reading the living archive. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. A metaphysical threshold.
Now, metaphysical threshold. I know, it's a pretty heavy term, right? But simply put, it's just a unique intersection. It's the exact spot where the physical earth, the geological formations, meets diverse human cultures and deep spiritual depth. Franco Artezzeros argues that this convergence makes the land an active participant in history. The really crucial takeaway here is that Los Animas County is not some static backdrop. It is dynamic, witnessing and recording everything. The source material uses this brilliant metaphor. A vast book written by time. When you look at the physical stratification of the mesas and canyons out there, you aren't just seeing erosion. You're literally looking at pages in a book. Those layers document millions of years of geological evolution, merging completely seamlessly with human history. The Earth and the human experience, they're part of the exact same continuous narrative. Section 2. The River of Souls. Let's walk through the chronological layers of the Purgatory River. Millions of years ago, the river began carving its canyon corridor, which is a geological undertaking of mind-boggling proportions. Fast forward to the ancient era, and indigenous tribes like the Ute and Apache utilized this exact corridor for spiritual passages. Later on, Spanish explorers arrived and named it Purgatory. Today, the river acts as this incredible temporal bridge. Its continuous flow connects the deep, ancient time of the Earth directly to us in the present. Now, what's really interesting about this is comparing two completely distinct cultural viewpoints looking at the exact same geography. Indigenous tribes, like the Ute and Apache, saw the river as a sacred corridor, literally a passage for souls traveling between worlds. Then the Spanish arrived with a Catholic theological framework and named it Purgatory, literally meaning purgatory. That's a space of transition and purification. So you have two entirely different worldviews, yet they both independently recognize this specific river as a spiritual boundary. How cool is that? If we zoom in from the vastness of the river down to the rocks right on its banks, we find petroglyphs. The source material beautifully refers to these as stone sermons. I mean, these aren't just ancient graffiti, they are the physical evidence of ancient rituals. They act as tangible links to ancestors and spirits. Remember earlier when we asked if the Earth could remember? Well, these carvings are permanent physical memories etched right into the landscape itself. Section 3. The mythic technician. So we're shifting now from the sweeping, slow flow of the river to a highly active human force, the vaquero. The source material views the vaquero as far more than just a frontier cowboy. Actually, they're categorized as a mythic technician. Their mastery of horsemanship isn't just a day job, it's a symbolic, ritualistic performance. The vaquero acts as a living thread, actively maintaining the spiritual connections between the land, the animals, and the people. Let's deconstruct the physical tools of this mythic technician, right? We've got the lariat, the saddle, and the spurs. These are not merely utilitarian objects for wrangling cattle. They're physical extensions of a deeply synthesized tradition. To create and use these tools, you have to intentionally blend the intimate, environmental knowledge of indigenous peoples with the leatherwork techniques of Spanish and Mexican settlers. Every single time a vaquero straps on a saddle, they are utilizing centuries of blended heritage. And this leads us to a really powerful realization. Horsemanship is not merely physical labor. It is a deeply symbolic, cultural synthesis. The everyday gritty work of the frontier actually transformed into a ritual. By continuing to practice these crafts today, the descendants of the vaqueros are keeping this blend of heritages alive, honoring the shared, complex history of Las Animas County.
Section 4. Trinidad, a cultural fusion.
Let's look at how the county seat, Trinidad, was actually built through distinct regional contributions. The indigenous Ute and Apache provided the foundational environmental knowledge and sacred connections to the river. Then, Spanish explorers introduced theological frameworks. Mexican settlers contributed crucial soil cultivation and early vaquero traditions. And finally, Anglo pioneers brought town building, railroads, and vital infrastructure. These four groups didn't just exist side by side, they actively interacted and merged their contributions.
Because of that intense interaction, Trinidad became what the author calls a cultural fusion node. You can physically see it in the layered architecture of its historic buildings, where Anglo infrastructure merged seamlessly with existing Spanish and Mexican traditions. But you also experience it in the shared food, the blended language, and the community festivals. Trinidad basically became this microcosm of cultural exchange where rigid boundaries just completely blurred.
And finally, Section 5, Reading the Living Archive. So, the crucial point is this. When we synthesize the triad of stories we've just explored, the river, the vaquero, and the town, we see that looking at Las Animas County means looking at mesas and canyons that serve as actual pages of history. It's a place holding a continuous narrative of deep geological time and human endeavor. Through the Purgatory River, the rituals of the vaquero, and the streets of Trinidad, the diverse cultures of the region have left a visible, layered identity. The landscape proves it is truly alive with meaning.
The core lesson of this source material is summed up in this thought. Las Animas County challenges us to see beyond simple categories. It's an invitation to stop looking at history in neat, isolated little boxes. The West wasn't shaped by just one group or one force. It requires immense respect for the complex, messy, and honestly beautiful interplay of the earth, diverse cultures, and profound spirituality.
We've spent this explainer reading the living archive of Las Animas County. But remember, this metaphysical threshold is just one example. So I want to leave you with this. What layers of history and memory are recorded in the earth beneath your own feet? What invisible archives are waiting to be read in your own surroundings? Think about that the next time you take a walk. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep exploring.